All right, guys, how's it going? Kicking off week 2 around the NFL. We just had Thursday night football last night between the Bills and Dolphins, in which the Buffalo Bills were victorious in blowout fashion. The Steelers will head to Denver for week 2, their second consecutive road game to kick off the year. They'll have the home opener in week 3, and hopefully it will be with a 2-0 record. Playing the Denver Broncos, a team that they should beat. Keyword is should. And a game that I should have more confidence in. But as a Steelers fan, I know better. Confidence is a dangerous thing for Steelers fans. It has been for a while. Where going into a game, you look at it and say, okay, overall on both sides of the ball, they're better. But for some reason, they have at least one of these a year. And most teams have one of these a year. Where, a couple years ago, the Chiefs lost to Matt Ryan and the Colts, and they won the Super Bowl that year. The year that the Bengals went to the Super Bowl, they lost to the Jets, who were on like their fourth quarterback. Stuff happens. It's the NFL. Anything can happen any given Sunday. That whole thing. And that is true. But I will say that again, just being a Steelers fan, noticing it happen so often is annoying. Now, I will also say the Steelers aren't in that echelon of teams. Like, they're not as good as the Chiefs, right? At least not right now. They're not on the same level as the Chiefs. But even when they were, like, even in the glory years of the Killer Bees, in 2017, when they were absolutely Super Bowl contenders, they lost on the road to Mike Glennon and the Bears. 2016, they lost to Matt Moore, I think it was, and the Dolphins in the regular season in Miami. And even the big game losses, like you lose to Tim Tebow in the playoffs, you lose to Blake Bortles in the playoffs. I'm just accustomed to the Steelers letting me down in games that they should win, which is why I have very little confidence going into this weekend. This is a game they should win. The Broncos aren't a good football team. Looking at the numbers right now, Bo Nix last week went 26 of 42 for 138 yards and 2 very bad interceptions. He averaged 3.2 yards per attempt. 3.2. That is hilariously bad. And some way, somehow, I'm just freaked out that the Steelers are going to make him look like he's Steve Young, which is why I don't have confidence. See everybody tuning in. What's up, Jared? How you doing, X? Good to see you. Eli Rogers muff punt versus the Mike Glennon Bears still hurts. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. A lot of things that have happened in big games before. And I wouldn't classify this as a quote-unquote big game, but like it kind of is, right? Like if you start off 2-0, I think the what is it? It's either the next gen or like the ESPN Power Index gives them like a 75% chance or something to make the playoffs. Like that's big. If you can get yourself 2 games up, that's big. So I would qualify this as a big game. Just got in here. This seems like a trap game. That's kind of how I feel. And again, I don't think the Steelers are a Super Bowl contender. I think they are a team that can make the playoffs and maybe win a playoff game, and they are certainly better than the Broncos. So I think that you could qualify this as a quote-unquote trap game. But I've been a Steelers fan long enough to know that they're going to let at least one game a year slip away to a team that they are so much better than. And it's going to be incredibly frustrating. And I feel like this is going to be one of those games that just really pisses you off. So, like I said, there are games And it's not just, I pointed it out already. Right now, the Steelers aren't amongst the elites of the NFL. But even when they were, there were games that they would constantly let slip away. I remember in, what was it, 20, I think it was also 2017, they let Jacoby Brissett and the Colts hang around. You lose to Tim Tebow. You lose to Blake Bortles in the playoffs. Like, there's been plenty of these games where there's no reason why you should lose those, And again, this isn't a playoff game, but if you can get 2 games up and start off 2-0, the Steelers haven't started 2-0 since 2020. And before that, when was the last time they started 2-0? Because it won 2019. That's the year that Ben got hurt. They started off 0-2. So they lost to the Patriots. And then the next week, Ben got hurt against Seattle, and they lost that game. I think they started 0-3 that year because they played the 49ers next week. Because that's after they traded for Minka. 2018, they started off 0-1 because they tied the Browns. 2017. Who did they play week 1 in 2017? That I will have to go back and look. I don't know if they started off. Anybody in the chat wants to look up if they started off 2-0 in 2017. 2016, they might have, because they went 13-3 that year, made it to the AAC title game, and then lost to New England. So they might have started off 2-0 then. Point being that they haven't started off 2-0 a lot over the last decade or so. I mean, hell, like back in like the late 2000s, early 2010s, they constantly started off hot. Now in recent years, they've kind of started off slow and picked it up in December, which I mean, I guess is better than the inverse of that. But point being, they haven't started off 2-0 a lot. And you're going up against a Broncos defense that, is probably a little bit better than people think, but it's not a great defense. This is far from a great team. I think that Denver is going to be, a 5-win team maybe, and it's going to be a pain in the butt if one of those wins comes against Pittsburgh. So let's look quickly at their defense. So I believe John Franklin Myers is questionable. You can check me on that. But they have some young guys that are fun. Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning, Alex Singleton. Like, that's a solid linebacking core. Obviously, Patrick Surtain's very good. But I mean, in the secondary, PJ Locke and Brandon Jones are their 2 starting safeties. You should be able to take some shots over the top and succeed. And look, they took some shots over the top in week 1 against Atlanta, and it worked. So I have no doubt that Fields can sling it. He's shown that he can do that. Like, that's never been the issue with Fields. The issue with Fields has been the quick game and being consistent in the short and intermediate routes. We know that he can sling it. So take some shots against Broncos secondary that outside of Pat Surtain isn't good. I see a lot of you commenting here, so I'll pull that up real quick. So, Jared, I know Denver is historically good at home in September, but this is a bad Denver team with a lot of injuries. Not sold on Sean Payton without Drew Brees. Reminds me of Mike Ditka without Walter Payton. That's a fun shout. Yeah, let me make it clear. Denver's not a good team, and the Steelers absolutely should win this game. It's not going to be one I'm surprised if they lose, though. I'm going to do my write-up tomorrow for Behind the Steel Curtain. I'm going to do, keys to victory and all that. I do it every week. I don't think I'm going to predict them to win because it just feels like one of those obvious Steelers losses that shouldn't be a loss. They should win. I'm not going to be surprised if they don't, though. I've seen it too many times in my life. James Conner's fumble on that Denver game. I think, you're talking about the second Broncos game. I think you meant Fitzgerald Toussaint because Lev Bell was hurt. James Conner wasn't in the league yet. So it was 2015 season. They didn't get Conner till 17, 18 maybe. Yeah, Fitz Toussaint kind of fumbled that game away. Sad day. Too early in the year for trap games. Tomlin still has their focus this early in the year, especially as a team with strong veteran leadership to keep the youngins in line. Look, man, I would like to think that they'll win this game. I'm just very hesitant to say that they will. They should. They are better than the Broncos. They have a better coach. They have better players on both sides of the ball. I still won't be shocked if they lose just because they have at least one of those a year where it just makes you bash your head against a wall because it's a game that they shouldn't lose. 2017 Browns, then either Vikings or Falcons. They played the Browns? Yes, they did, because that was TJ Watt's debut. Yes, absolutely correct. Beat Cleveland week 1 that year. It's a good shout, Jeff. All right. Yeah. So I think they would have started off 2-0 in 2017 then. Get worried when everyone is betting on the Steelers. Vegas makes too much money. If it goes wrong, refs don't need more. No, the refs aren't scamming anybody. That's my least favorite argument in sports, that the refs are scamming people. They're not. Every fan base in the league thinks that the refs hate their team. They don't. Losing to Tyler Huntley and Anthony Brown in 2022. Yeah, but at the same time, the Steelers were playing Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett. So, it was kind of an even matchup against a Ravens team that also had a good defense. That was a relatively even matchup. Because Pickett and Trubisky sucked. Tyler Huntley and Anthony Brown suck. That was a fairly even matchup. Seen a lot of social media posts about the way Burrow was favoring his wrists on his throwing hand. Is it just internet BS, or have you heard anything different? I mean, I don't have any people in Cincinnati that would be in the know on that, or around the league for that matter. I think that Joe's going to be fine. The Bengals always start off slow. This is the 4th straight year they started off 0-1. And the 3rd straight year the Bengals have looked like complete just dumpster fire garbage in week 1. Because remember, 2022, against the Steelers, Burrow threw 4 picks. They went to the AFC title game that year. Last year, Burrow was hurt throughout the first month and a half of the year. They had the bye week, and then they started picking up traction again. And then Burrow hurt his wrist. So I'm not too worried about it. If it continues and the wrist is clearly an issue, then I'll start to worry about it. But I think that this is just kind of who they are. They always start off slow. But I still would put them as my favorites to win the division. Fitz fumbles divisional round. Oh, the 2018 year. Yeah. Okay. That, yes. I do recall that now. I went to see Travis Scott in Pittsburgh that night. I don't know why I went to that. I'm not a rap music person. All my friends were, and they wanted me to go, so I went. But yeah, that was a rough game. That was the game that Ben threw a just an interception at the goal line to end it. That broke my heart. That sucked. That was kind of the beginning of the end for the Steelers. Then AB got pissed at Ben, and then it kind of just fell apart from there. Because then they lost. They started off that year 7-2-1, lost 3 straight, finished 9-6-1, and missed the playoffs. Sad day. Sad day. Refs are controlled by Vegas, just my take. I can tell you that they're not, man. So Steelers-wise, we know that Pat Surtain's probably going to follow George Pickens. If that's the case, then, a lot of my buddies on the beat are very high on Ben Skronik, who was a very fun player for the Rams, kind of played a bunch of different positions as fullback, tight end, receiver, this weird hybrid player. Maybe he gets some looks this week. We'll see. But somebody needs to step up. Whether it's Calvin Austin, whether it's Van Jefferson, somebody do something. And look, Pickens is going to get his. I think he'll have, at least 5 catches or whatever it will be. Somebody else has got to do something. Because the rest of the receivers catching a combined 2 passes for 8 yards, that ain't going to cut it throughout the year. So somebody else needs to step up. I think that the offense as a whole did a good job of establishing long drives, which is something that we hadn't really seen in a while in Pittsburgh. They just need to finish. Saw plenty of times where they had, a 10-play drive, another 10-play drive, like a 13-play drive. We hadn't seen that in a long time. They only had 2 3-and-outs. Hell, they'd have 2 3-and-outs by midway through the first quarter last year on a routine basis. So the offense looks promising. They just got to finish. They got to punch a ball into the end zone. But a lot of that starts with, hey, somebody else has got to catch some passes. Maybe it'll be a big Pat Freiermuth week. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with somebody else. Now, I think Pat had like 4 catches for like 30 yards last week. It wasn't anything crazy. But I think Pickens and Freiermuth combined for like 130 of Fields' 156 yards. Like it was 2 dudes. So somebody else at the receiver position needs to do something. Calvin Austin, do something. Van Jefferson, do something. Like, I saw a comment, Scotty Miller. Scotty Miller did something last week at least. He didn't have a catch, but he held the ball when Cam got hurt, and then he made a tackle on Boz's punt. At least he did something. It's more than I could say about Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson's tall ass couldn't gain 2 yards on a 3rd down RPO. I do think that they'll make a move for a receiver at some point before the trade deadline. Because what they have right now, and again, I can applaud Omar Khan for going balls to the wall and trying to get Brandon Ayuk. It just didn't work out in his favor. But at the same time, the other side of that coin is now you're stuck without a legitimate second receiver, which is a pain in the ass and kind of what happens when you go for broke. Which, again, I can appreciate having a general manager with that mindset. I'd much rather have that mindset than being extremely conservative. But that is the other side of that coin. And something that you kind of got to deal with and eat sometimes, All right, I see a lot of you guys' comments, so let me scroll up here and take some. Don't live in your fears, Jared. I hear you. I just have a sense that this team is different. Feels like Tomlin is more dialed in, almost like Rooney has been more forceful. Tomlin. And look, maybe they go out and they kick some ass. I would love nothing more than to see them win like 28-6. That would rule. Especially if like Fields balls out, because if that happens, then we have to really start the conversation of, okay, maybe Wilson just doesn't see the field. Because if Justin goes out and let's say they do win like 24-6 or 27-10, something like that, where it's just dominant, or the Steelers offense at least puts up like 24-27 points. Fields accounts for like 250 yards of total offense and a couple touchdowns. Like there's no reason why you put him on the bench next week, regardless of if Wilson's healthy or not. Especially in the home opener, after a game like that, fans are going to be dying to see Justin Fields. And I think Tomlin knows that. He'll say all the things in the media and whatnot, but we saw a little bit of this last year with Kenny Pickett and internally he said, all right, you're going to miss this game against Seattle, or excuse me, you're going to miss this game against Cincinnati, but if you're healthy, we'll put you back in for Seattle. And then Mason Rudolph played really well. And like, actually, we're going to keep going Mason Rudolph because he did really well and the offense scored 34 points. So you're going to continue to sit. Now, I don't think Russell Wilson will throw a hissy fit like Kenny Pickett did. I think he'll be, the leader that he is. Corny or not, like Russ is a good leader. But that's a whole other conversation. Scotty Miller going to get a deep ball this week. I mean, if you remember back in 2020, Scotty Miller was like the Bucs' deep ball threat when they won the Super Bowl. Because he had a deep ball touchdown in Lambeau was it the NFC title game that year? Divisional round, because they played the Saints in the title game. It was in Lambeau during the playoffs. It was either the division round or the title game. I can't remember which one it was. But it was in Lambeau, and he had a big game. We need a blocking wide receiver too, Van Jefferson, even Pickens blocking. You could say a lot of things about George Pickens. Whenever he does block, it ain't trash. It's just sometimes, I shouldn't even say sometimes. There was a viral play where like he didn't block last year against Indianapolis. Like Pickens can block. Van Jefferson, on the other hand, he hasn't shown that he can do that. At least not with the Steelers. Jay, what's up, brother? Always good to see you live. I appreciate that. Thank you. Faton is starting this week over Broderick. Seems, but Broderick's tape was underwhelming last week. It looks like that. The way that they were practicing with their seemingly first team offensive line from left to right, it went Dan Moore, Spencer Anderson, Zach Frazier, James Daniels, Troy Faton, which hints at the fact that they're going to sit Broderick. And if that's the case, then they have themselves to blame. This has been coaching malpractice and just a complete F up on their part. Because last year you had the chance to put him at left tackle because Dan Moore wasn't good, but instead you took out Chuks Okorafor, who wasn't perfect, but he was better than Dan Moore. And you could have just played him at left tackle for half a year, got him some reps, gone into the season with him being the left tackle and Fatano being the right tackle, and just kept it moving. Instead, you flip-flopped him constantly back and forth. He couldn't get comfortable, couldn't get any sort of consistency because he couldn't get comfortable. And now we're where we're at with Roger Jones now, where he's in danger of getting benched. I wouldn't blame Roger Jones if he requested a trade because this has been a complete mishandling. You traded up to draft this guy in the first round, and for some reason you're still starting Dan Moore. What the hell are you doing? Makes no sense whatsoever. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to do that, but if I was him, I'd request a trade. Like, look, you guys haven't done anything good with me since you got me. Send me somewhere where I know I'll be coached well and be given more opportunities to succeed rather than constantly flip-flopping back and forth between right tackle and left tackle. It makes no sense. So if I was him, I'd request a trade. I was so impressed with the coaches last week. No book on Atlanta going in and game plan for Russell, but had to play fields and game adjustments were impressive on both sides. Yeah. Like the offense didn't finish. They didn't have any touchdowns or anything. But again, new offense, new coordinator, new quarterback, a lot of new offensive line, like a rookie center, basically a rookie in Spencer Anderson who didn't really see any playing time last year. Like the fact that they were able to sustain long drives, that was the biggest thing for me because last year they didn't do that. But they showed clear ability and consistency to hold on to the ball, control the clock, move the ball downfield, take deep shots that were successful. Like there was a lot of good to like for the Steelers. Let's go ahead and start the Devontae Adams agenda. I'm way ahead of you on that. Way ahead of you on that. Could have had Gabe Davis for $13 million in March. So many missed opportunities at the start of free agency. Gabe Davis is fine. Like, Gabe Davis has really been living off one playoff game. Because there was, I think, 5 games last year where he had 1 or 0 catches with the Bills. Now, he's a very good run blocker. I'll give Gabe Davis credit where that's due. He's a very good run blocker. So he would have been a nicer fit for the Steelers. And I hear you on that. But I don't think that Gabe Davis would have changed the world here. And I don't dislike Gabe Davis. I just think that he's been a little bit overrated. Oops. So, Jared, good work, my dude. I appreciate that, man. And by the way, I'll take this quick opportunity. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. 2 Steelers shows per week, as well as every episode of The Pump Fake, which is my podcast where I cover the rest of the league. You can listen to that wherever you get your podcast. That's The Pump Fake with Jared Bailey. Just did the week 2 preview show with Doug Farrar. So go and listen to that, or you can watch it on here. If you want to follow my written work at Sporting News, that's great. If you want to follow the Steelers written work over at Behind the Steel Curtain, that's also do that. Appreciate it. But first and foremost, like, subscribe, do all that fun YouTube stuff. Helps out the channel a lot, helps out me a lot. If you want to leave a super chat, you're able to do that as well. Not that you need to, but if you want to support me, that's a very good way to do it. So very much appreciate everybody for doing that. Trash is a hard word. Inconsistent is what I mean. I see George Pickens give amazing effort, and then on some, it's like, yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen people like accuse George of like taking plays off, and that might be a fair critique of his. But hopefully that part of him is behind. Non-football question. I noticed watching today's Pump Fake, good show, by the way, that in the beginning there's a clip of you without the hat. Nice blocks. Why not go with that? Well, thank you, first of all. I think right now I'm like in between deciding what to do with my hair. So I think we're gonna like start over, just kind of go bald fade. blend it up a little bit, and then see what I want to do after that. Right now, it's just here. You want to see it? It's just a little messy and a little bit shorter. So I just kind of go hat because I like the way that it looks better, if I'm being perfectly honest. Yeah, I think like that's not a question I was prepared to answer. So I appreciate the compliment though. Yeah, go and watch all this stuff on the Pump Fake. I can tell you guys this. Next Tuesday, not this coming Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, if this will get you to subscribe, I'll be joined by Max Crosby. So doing a thing with Max Crosby, that'll be a lot of fun. So subscribe to the channel for that. That'll drop, again, not this coming Tuesday, but the Tuesday after week 3. So that'll be fun with Max Crosby. So subscribe to the channel. Lots of fun stuff happening. Steelers coaching mess up the offensive line, flipping players from their natural positions. And look, like, it's far from the only example of them messing up an offensive lineman in recent years. Kevin Dotson wasn't going to be a starter, and now he's one of the best guards in the league. Like, their development of offensive linemen has not been good. And they should have let go of Pat Meyer when they let go of Matt Canada, because he's bad. They should have just completely revamped the entire coaching staff. If you want to keep Eddie Faulkner, that's fine. He's a fine running backs coach. I like Eddie. And the work that he does with the running backs is genuinely very good. But there was no reason to keep Pat Meyer around. You know, you brought in a new quarterbacks coach, new offensive coordinator. You should have thrown out the offensive line coach as well, because he's not good. And the development of Broderick Jones and the lackluster development of Kevin Dotson and then the emergence of Kevin Dotson in Los Angeles, like, that tells me all I need to know about him. He's not very good. And that's just kind of what it is. Again, as I've said plenty of times so far, this is a game that they should win. It's absolutely a game that they should win. It's just, we saw last year they were 6-3. Was it 6-3? Might have been 6-3. 7-4, whatever the hell they were. Yeah, 7-4 going into a game against Arizona. Should have beat the Cardinals. And if you want to argue that, okay, well, Kyler was starting to find his rhythm a little bit, and Trey McBride's a good tight end, the weather delay, that's fine. Like, I think, you know, the Cardinals with Kyler Murray are a far different team than the Cardinals with Clayton Tune. So that's a fair argument. The Patriots, that's a game you got to win. The Patriots were god-awful. Throwing Bailey Zappi out there, and they made him look like he was a Pro Bowler. And you lose those games back-to-back, and then you lose to Gardner effing Minshew. You lose to Bailey Zappi and Gardner Minshew in back-to-back weeks. Granted, again, they were playing Mitch Trubisky. He's very bad. And Jonathan Taylor ran all over them. And they were beat to hell defensively. There's context needed for that. But you're 7-4, and you lose to 2 consecutive 2-10 teams, and then Gardner Minshew. That's kind of rough. So it would not shock me at all if they lose to Sean Payton and Bo Nix. And then I can see it right now. Everybody's going to be back on the Bo Nix train, even though he stinks. I could see his career arc being like a mixture of Kenny Pickett and Mac Jones. Where, like, he's not good. I don't think he's going to be a Pro Bowler as a rookie, but he might have some moments that people say, okay, there might be something there. And his rookie year is going to be the best that we see. I don't think he's good. Again, no offense to Bo Nix. But he very clearly can't throw a ball more than like 10 yards downfield, which is why he left Auburn to go to Oregon, by the way, and then look good in like his 5th or 6th year in college. Like, he's not an NFL franchise quarterback. He might be an okay backup, gives you a little bit of athleticism, but he's not a franchise quarterback. He's not a long-term starting quarterback in this league. That's okay. I'll play the long game and be right about that one too. Same way I was right about Mac Jones. Same way I was right about Kenny Pickett. I'll be right. And if you have any other questions about Steelers-Broncos or any other NFL questions, you can drop those in the chat. I'll take all your questions. Again, we're about a half hour in right now. We'll stay till around the 40-minute-ish mark. So if you have any other questions, whether it pertains to Steelers-Broncos, anything else around the NFL, go ahead and ask. I'll get all of them taken care of. All right, I see a lot of these coming in. There we go. All right. Fields lit up Denver last year in Chicago. Yes, he did. And that was the first of 2 consecutive games with 4 passing touchdowns for Justin Fields, because then he did it against Washington the next game, I believe on Thursday night, and then he got hurt. So Fields is like finding himself, and it began against Denver. Unfortunately, his defense blew that game for him, but that's just how it goes, unfortunately, for Justin Fields. JB off the cuff, great content as always. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Hope you can do a rerun this week. Hey, if anything, like with the Steelers, I don't have like I said, I don't have Super Bowl hopes for them. I just don't think that that's their ceiling right now. If they win a playoff game this year, I'll be happy. If the offense keeps looking better and if they find out that Fields is like the guy long term, then that's a great year. Talking about interviews, I reached out to Patrick Queen before camp for my pod. He responded and said a day, then never answered back. Was salty, but also understanding. These guys get busy, man. It happens sometimes. Yeah, crap just happens, especially like around the season coming in. They might not know the days in their schedule off the bat, and then just kind of have to miss out on some stuff. So I don't necessarily hold that against them too much. I wasn't huge on Gabe Davis as many of the free agent wide receivers in March, but Van Jefferson has me desperate for a legit receiver. That is one thing. Like Gabe Davis is a legit like number 2 receiver. Like he specializes in 2 things. He can run block and he's a deep threat. Which I'll take a guy that can give you that right now. Because respect to Van Jefferson, like I like Van, but he's just not very good. He's not a good number 2. He's an NFL receiver, sure, but it would be much better if he was the 3 or 4. Right now, he's got to be the number 2 outside guy, which isn't great. Frazier pancaking out there. Looks great pickup for us. Zach Frazier's awesome. I think he was like the highest graded offensive lineman in the NFL by PFF, which I mean, take those with a grain of salt. But even then, he had a hell of a game. So it definitely looks like they found their franchise center, at least. Hopefully they don't somehow mess that up. Cheeseheads are in trouble. Malik Willis is starting for a few weeks. Man, that broke my heart. Now, granted, I'm very happy that Jordan Love isn't like hurt long term, because it looked at first like that was a season-ending injury, which would have. I love Jordan Love. I think he's great. I picked the Packers to make it out of the NFC and go to the Super Bowl. Like I was very high on Green Bay. Not to say that still can't happen, but yeah, it looks like Love's going to miss like a month, which again, if you're a Packers fan, you're much happier about that. And, much happier about that than you would be if he was missing all season, but they really got to tread water and hope that. My prediction is that Malik Willis is going to be awful and they're going to call Ryan Tannehill or somebody, maybe make a trade for something. Maybe they trade for Mac Jones. I'll say this. If they trade for Mac Jones, he can get them. Like I'm not a big Mac Jones guy. I think he's a fine backup though, and he would be able to work Matt LaFleur's system just fine. So call somebody like that and get a legit. Malik Willis is not an NFL quarterback. No offense to Malik Willis, he's just not good. Like, I would take Trace McSorley over Malik Willis. Malik Willis is a bad quarterback. So that's my prediction. They're going to try this thing with Willis once. The Colts are going to beat the holy piss out of them. And they're going to realize, all right, we can't do this with Malik Willis. Maybe they try Sean Clifford. I don't know. I like Sean Clifford. I'm a Penn State guy, but I just don't think that Sean Clifford's going to be the answer there either. So I would make a move, like give Jacksonville like a 5 for Mac Jones, call it a day. Roll with him as your backup going forward. I think that would be the best thing that they can do. Is Roman Wilson being downgraded to limited participant today after being a full participant yesterday mean he had a setback, maybe just soreness showing he's still recovering? That's worrying, honestly. I think it's just them being cautious. I I don't know where he's at in terms of getting back and completely healthy, but we'll see how long it takes him to get back. I don't know if they plan to play him. I don't know if they gave him a game designation. Let me actually look real quick if they gave him a game designation for Sunday. Drum roll, please. Roman Wilson is questionable, so he might play. We'll see. Obviously, Isaac is out, and it looks like Russ won't play again. So, but yeah, I would say it might just be them being a little bit cautious, but he's questionable, so we'll see. That's one as well where, like, I'm talking about receivers need to step up. When Roman Wilson gets back, that's one that you would obviously like to see have a nice year and give you a little bit of hope at the receiver position, wherever they use him, whether they try to transition him to be more of an outside guy so they can have him, Pickens, and Calvin Austin on the field at the same time. When they go 11 personnel, then, whatever. But hopefully he's back sooner than later. Steelers 24-9. Fields will have 190 yards passing and a touchdown, 50 yards rushing. Najee 70 yards and a touchdown. Defense holds them under 250 yards, 3 sacks, 2 forced turnovers. If that happens, man, I'm happy as a clam. Because I bet the under, and that's 31. Under's 36.5. I'll be happy. And yeah, if Fields has 240 total yards of offense and a touchdown while the run game looks solid, fine by me. 120 yards on the ground combined. I'm sure Jalen will have his own touches as well to add to that. So if they win 24-9, I will be ecstatic. If they go 2 weeks into the NFL season and only allow 1 touchdown, cool. Like, very quietly, I think that this could be their best defense since 2010. Like, they don't have any, like, glaring holes. Maybe nickel, but even then, like, Beanie Bishop played fine against Atlanta. They kind of had some rotating pieces. I think Dante Jackson took a few snaps in the slot as well. So, like, there's not very many glaring holes on the Steelers defense. I think that this could be their best defense since 2010. Tomlin's very good against rookie quarterbacks, and their O-line is very overpaid for how bad they are playing. That is true. Mike Tomlin's 24-6 against rookie quarterbacks. Now, that being said, C.J. Stroud was a rookie last year and beat the holy hell out of them. But Bo Nix is not C.J. Stroud. So, context needed for that. Who would have been the last one that he lost to before Stroud? Oh, that's a fun game to play. I'll have to go back and see if I can figure that out. Maybe one of you know it. I honestly don't think I do. Not off the top of my dome, at least. Who would have been the last rookie to beat him? Wasn't Lamar. Who would it have been? Yeah, that's a fun little trivia question. Deontay Johnson were available for a 6th or 5th rounder. Do you personally bring him back? No, they're not going to bring him back. Because he's on this is the last year of his deal. Unless Carolina extended him. They might have done that, actually. Hold on. Let me look at his deal. It's either that or he's a free agent next year. That's the thing. They're not going to send a draft pick just to have Deontay Johnson be a rental for a year after they just traded him. Like, that's not how that would work. I want to say they gave him a new contract. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Drum roll, please. Yeah, so he's still going to be an unrestricted free agent in 2025. I think Tomlin agrees regarding the defense. That's why the offensive game plan will be fairly conservative. In my opinion, the defense will eat. I think that we're going to see a little bit more aggression. We saw some aggression last week. Like, Fields made some good throws downfield. The one before the half, the one that got called back for OPI. He had another one to Pickens that he shouldn't have been ruled down on, but was ruled down. So, like, he had like 3-4 like good passes downfield last week against Atlanta. Carolina said they're not extending him. Yeah, I don't think that they do that. I think that they traded him for a reason. They're not going to bring him back. Defense looking like championship D's of old. Just need the offense to catch up. And again, the offense looked fine last week. They just need to punch the ball in the end zone a couple times rather than settle for field goals. Like, if you take 2 of those drives, turn it into touchdowns instead of field goals, that's math. Hold on. So you take away 6, so that's an 8-point difference. So it's what, 26-10 instead of 18. I mean, it's a pretty good difference, isn't it? Or 24-10, whatever it may be. Regardless, it looks much better. Tomlin also lost to DTR last year, who was a rookie. That's true. Yeah. Good shout, Jeff. Yes, I totally forgot about the DTR game. That was kind of the beginning of the end for Kenny Pickett and Matt Canada. Actually, I think it was the end for Matt Canada. They fired him after that game. Right? That's the game that they fired Canada. Yes, because they beat Cincinnati the next week, got to 7-4. Pickett got hurt against Arizona. So, yes, that was the end for Matt Canada. Ugh. Dorian Thompson-Robinson. See, that's my thing, man. Right there. You lose to Dorian Thompson-Robinson, there's nothing in my mind that says you can't lose to Bo Nix. Ugh. Grinds my gears. I hope it doesn't happen, but I'm not confident. I want to be more confident. Like I said, I've seen this too many times, and it's going to anger me. I'm preparing myself to be angry, and I'm ready for it. Sucks that they play at the same time as Kansas City and Cincinnati, because I would have liked to watch all of that game. But here we are. So I would have preferred either Kansas City and Cincinnati to be like the Sunday night game, or if one of these games are on the 1 o'clock window, but being in Denver has to be in the 4 o'clock window. So I get it. So yeah, that's basically where I'm at. Bo Nix is a weak deep ball, a very weak deep ball, because he can't throw the ball deep. His arm's not very big. Anything in week 1 surprise you? The Saints offense. I spent all offseason talking about how bad the Saints were going to be and how boring they were. And again, it's 1 week against maybe the worst team in football, but you put up 47 points after a lackluster season last year. Derek Carr looked good. So that surprised me a little bit. And good for Derek Carr. I like Derek Carr. So the Saints surprised me a little bit. I think overall just how bad Kirk looked, and it was pretty clear that he's not 100%, because they went all of their snaps except for 2 were in pistol, and Kirk, who was extremely good at play action, they did it 0 times, which tells me, oh, that Achilles isn't 100%, and they don't think that he's like able to move. Which, if that's the case, why the hell did you give him $145 million if that is how you felt? So that didn't make a lot of sense. What do you think about Tua and the Dolphins? First and foremost, I hope that Tua is okay. That's my biggest thing, like on a human being level. I hope that he's okay. From a football level, I've said it the past few years. Like, they'll beat up on bad teams. They are not a great team. Every time they've faced a great team, they've gotten the dog shit kicked out of them. So they can play bully ball against like mediocre to bad teams, but every time they faced a good team, they lose. And they lose convincingly. And I've said for the past couple years, I wrote about it probably 2 months ago, that they shouldn't have extended Tua. I think that was a mistake. And he showed that last night with his play. Threw 3 really bad interceptions. Just what it is. And again, on a human being, I hope he's okay. Like, he seems like a great dude. I hope that he, very strongly, I'm not going to say whether he should retire or not. That's not my business. But it's, saw Antonio Pierce say, look, bro, you're going to live a lot longer than you play, and you got a family to worry about. Like, that's Antonio Pierce saying that. That's a notoriously tough dude. And again, it's not my business to comment on. If he decides he wants to keep playing, then okay. If he gets cleared to keep playing, then okay. But I hope that he is okay. And it sucks that, a guy like him, who seems to be, like I said, a genuinely good person, It sucks that he's been dealt this hand when, a certain quarterback in Cleveland is going to play this week who's horrible at football and even more horrible of a human being. But he'll play this week. And that's pretty unfortunate. But I hope Tua is okay. From a pure football perspective, I think the Dolphins I've said that they weren't going to make the playoffs this year. I still believe that. And we'll see what happens with the Dolphins from there. Tua makes me sad. Sucks for him. Fins are done. Aaron Rodgers showed flashes of old. Jets D surprised me versus the run. Jets defense was horrible. Yeah. I don't know how you don't game plan for outside zone stuff when you face a Kyle Shanahan team, but Jordan Mason ran all over them. So they got to clean it up this week. They have a get right week with the Titans, who I think are bad. I think Will Levis is just not good. Their defense is solid. Like Tennessee's defense is legit. Their offense is not. Their quarterback is not. And I think that'll be a get right week for the Jets offense to be able to get more long, sustainable drives. They did it once against San Francisco, but they just couldn't stay on the field, and their defense couldn't get off the field. So this is kind of a get right week for the Jets. And then they play the Patriots on Thursday night in week 3. So a chance to kind of get things fixed up real quick for them in back-to-back games. I only blame one pick on Tua. They're missing their center, left guard, and left tackle. Mahomes would fail behind that O-line. Look, I know that it's kind of weird to talk about the football stuff of Tua right now because of what he's going through, so I'm going to try my best not to, but I'll say this. Tua's not good at creating, and he's not good when, how do I want to word this? When the play doesn't go exactly how it's designed to go and the timing of it is off, he's not a good quarterback. That's how I'll put it. Titans should start Mason Rudolph. I would say there's a greater than 0 chance that happens this year because Will Levis isn't good. So I wouldn't be surprised if Brian Callahan's like, well, I saw what you did when I was in Cincinnati last year when the Steelers put you in. So let's see what you can do with this offense. Jake Browning ran it pretty well. I think that you can run it pretty well. Surprised the Chargers kept Brandon Staley for so long because of how bad he was. Robert Saleh is now the head coach. I'm surprised he's not fired yet. Yeah, I just don't think Robert Saleh is a good head coach. I think that he was given an extra year because of what happened to Rodgers last year. I just don't think he's the guy. Just don't think he's the guy. Now, I'm sure you guys want a prediction from me for this before we get out of here. So, and it might be a cop-out answer. If the Broncos do win, it's going to be a low-scoring, like 16-13 game that we all are just going to hate watch for 3 hours. But if the Steelers win, I think it's going to be relatively dominant. But again, I don't want to pick them to win because I've seen them lose this same type of game too many times where it's just like, all right, you should beat this team who you are much better than. Please beat this team that you are much better than, and they just don't. So if they do win, it's going to be convincing. If they lose, it's going to be by the skin of their teeth and frustrating. I want to say they'll win, but I feel like they're not gonna. I'm not confident in this whatsoever, which maybe if I play a little bit reverse psychology here, maybe it means that they will win since I'm not confident in it happening. Maybe that's how it'll go. Realistically, if they do win, I think it'll be like 24-10. But I think that'll do it for today. And again, subscribe to the channel. A lot of fun stuff coming. You can watch every episode of the Pump Fake on here. 2 episodes of Black and Gold Breakdown per week. That only stream here. That's not a podcast. Again, Black and Gold Breakdown is just for the YouTube. Pump Fake you can listen to wherever you get your podcast, or you can watch it on the channel. Interview with Max Crosby coming in a little bit over a week, so about a week and a half. It'll be the Tuesday after week 3, so that'll be fun dropping on here. And then there will be a written component as well that comes out on SB Nation. So all of that coming. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. for all of that. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Hopefully, when we meet again on Monday, the Steelers are 2-0, and we'll have a lot to celebrate. If not, I will be sad. So enjoy. Have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.